Chewbacca, the towering Wookiee co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon, is one of the most instantly recognizable sidekicks in cinematic history. At first glance, he appears to be all brawn, an intimidating, fur-covered figure who communicates in guttural roars and growls. But beneath that fearsome exterior lies a fiercely loyal companion and a surprisingly skilled mechanic. As Han Solo's constant partner, Chewbacca is more than muscle. He is an equal partner in the smuggling operation, a trusted confidant, and often the moral center who silently steers Han away from selfishness. Their dynamic is so deeply rooted that Han is one of the few who can understand Chewbacca's native tongue, Shiriwook, allowing the Wookiee to play a fully active role in the duo's decision-making.
A Jedi Knight? I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur.
The character's defining personality trait is his loyalty, a quality that is showcased repeatedly across the saga. This is first seen in A New Hope, during the game of Dejarik, a holographic chess-like contest aboard the Falcon. When C-3PO warns R2-D2 to let the Wookiee win, it reinforces Chewbacca's fearsome reputation and his competitive nature. But his loyalty is most vividly displayed when he risks everything to protect his friends, from breaking into detention blocks on the Death Star to piloting the Falcon during the Battle of Endor. Chewbacca is not just comic relief or muscle, he is a living reminder of the bonds of friendship that hold the rebellion together. Bringing Chewbacca to life required an extraordinary collaboration of actor, costume designer, and sound engineer. Peter Mayhew, the 7'3" British hospital orderly who was cast as Chewbacca, had no prior acting experience, yet he became the heart of the character through physicality alone. He studied the movement of gorillas, bears, and monkeys at the London Zoo to craft a gait and posture that felt animalistic yet intelligent. His performance was enhanced by a groundbreaking mask designed by Stuart Freeborn, which linked Mayhew's jaw to the mask's lips, allowing Chewbacca to display a full range of facial expressions. Ben Burtt's inventive sound design completed the illusion, blending bear growls, walrus cries, and lion roars into the unique language of Shiriwook.
You made a fair move. Screaming about it can't help you.
Chewbacca's legacy was not always guaranteed. Early critics of Star Wars dismissed him as a gimmick, even calling him the worst character in the film. But audience response was so strong that his role was expanded throughout the trilogy. One of the most famous controversies surrounding Chewbacca is the so-called medal snub at the end of A New Hope, where only Luke and Han are awarded medals. This omission sparked decades of debate among fans, until it was finally addressed in later media, cementing his status as a true hero of the rebellion. The character remains a symbol of courage, loyalty, and the power of wordless performance to convey deep emotion. Nick Bradshaw, aka Goose. Anthony Edwards' portrayal of Nick "Goose" Bradshaw is the beating heart of Top Gun. From the moment Goose is introduced as Maverick's radar intercept officer, he is presented as more than just a co-pilot. He is the ballast that keeps Maverick's reckless tendencies in check. Goose's easygoing charm, quick wit, and grounded personality provide a perfect counterbalance to Maverick's intensity. While Maverick seeks the adrenaline rush of aerial combat, Goose is motivated by the family waiting for him at home, his wife Carol and their young son Bradley. This domestic grounding makes Goose a unique presence among the fighter jocks. He is not trying to prove himself, he is trying to survive and make sure he gets home. His playful banter with Maverick, including their famous duet of Great Balls of Fire, is more than comic relief.
My will? Oh, what a thrill. Goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire. Woo!
It cements their bond and makes the tragedy of his death hit with devastating force. The casting of Edwards was a deliberate choice by director Tony Scott, who famously clashed with producer Don Simpson over the direction of the character. Simpson wanted a purely comedic foil, but Scott argued that Goose had to be someone the audience would deeply care about when he dies. Edwards brought warmth and relatability that elevated Goose from sidekick to emotional core. His performance makes Goose feel like a real person rather than a stock best friend archetype, which is why his loss becomes the defining trauma that reshapes Maverick's life. Edwards and the rest of the cast underwent the same grueling water survival and G-force training as real Navy aviators.
Passed the Naval Aviator Overwater Survival Training course. You get in the pool and you do a bunch of different exercises.
Edwards recalled blacking out during centrifuge exercises simply by relaxing his muscles at the wrong moment, a visceral experience that gave him a true understanding of the stakes his character faced every time he flew. This commitment to authenticity shows in his performance. Goose's fear during the flat spin sequence feels completely real, heightening the shock when he dies in the ejection. Goose's narrative purpose is to catalyze Maverick's transformation. His death forces Maverick to face the consequences of his recklessness and confront his guilt, an arc that carries through to Top Gun. Maverick, where the emotional weight is passed to Goose's son, Rooster. The call sign itself was inspired by a real radar intercept officer named Lieutenant David J. Goose Lorcher, who once misidentified an engine failure, earning the nickname as a darkly humorous reference. This small detail reflects the film's grounding in the real world, making Goose feel like someone who could truly exist. Samwise Gamgee. Sean Astin steps into the role of Samwise Gamgee as if he was born for it, portraying a character who begins as Frodo Baggins's gardener and evolves into the moral and emotional backbone of the Lord of the Rings. Sam's defining trait is unwavering devotion. His promise to Gandalf, "Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee, and I don't mean to," becomes his guiding principle as he follows Frodo from the safety of the Shire into the heart of Mordor. He is the everyman hero, humble, rustic, and reluctant, yet capable of acts of staggering courage. His transformation is gradual but profound, turning from a shy servant into the figure who literally carries Frodo up the slopes of Mount Doom when his master can no longer go on, uttering the unforgettable words,
"I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Come on!"
Astin's preparation for the role required a complete immersion into Tolkien's world. He admitted he had never read the books before auditioning, but once cast, he consumed them multiple times to mine every piece of insight into Sam's psyche. Astin also gained over 30 pounds to physically embody the stocky, well-fed hobbit and endured the daily ordeal of prosthetic feet, which became an iconic element of the character's look. His commitment paid off with a performance that critics praised for its sincerity and emotional power, earning him numerous Best Supporting Actor awards and cementing Sam as one of the most beloved characters in fantasy cinema. Sam's narrative function is unique because he is, in many ways, the true protagonist of the trilogy. Frodo is the ring-bearer, but his arc is one of increasing passivity and corruption under the ring's burden. Sam, conversely, grows stronger, braver, and more resolute as the journey progresses. His victory over Shelob, his brief but significant tenure as ring-bearer, and his decision to return the ring to Frodo rather than keep it for himself demonstrate that he is the most incorruptible member of the Fellowship. Even when tempted, his vision of power is not one of domination but of turning Mordor into a lush garden, a reflection of his pastoral soul. Tolkien himself confirmed Sam's importance, calling him the chief hero of the story and basing him on the loyal Batmen, soldier, servants he had served alongside during World War I. This grounding in reality makes Sam one of the most relatable heroes in fantasy literature. His ultimate fate, returning home to marry Rosie and restore the Shire, reinforces Tolkien's theme that the smallest, most unassuming individuals can change the world. Frye. Cameron Frye, played by Alan Ruck, is the emotional center of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and arguably its true protagonist. While Ferris is the charming instigator of mischief, Cameron's journey is the one that carries the film's emotional weight. Introduced as a hypochondriac teen who spends most of his time in bed, Cameron represents the alienated, anxious side of adolescence. He lives in a pristine, museum-like house that reflects the emotional sterility of his relationship with his parents. His psychosomatic illnesses are less about physical frailty and more about control, one of the few ways he can assert power in a life dominated by an absent, authoritarian father. Alan Ruck's casting was unconventional. At 29 years old, he was far older than the high schooler he was playing, but his baby-faced appearance and his prior stage chemistry with Matthew Broderick, from their time together in Neil Simon's Broadway production of Biloxi Blues, convinced John Hughes he was perfect for the role. Ruck drew inspiration from Edvard Munch's painting The Scream to capture Cameron's internal state of panic, channeling that tension into a performance that makes Cameron feel fragile yet deeply human.
I'll go. Shit.
The film's most iconic moments often revolve around Cameron's transformation rather than Ferris's antics. His quiet, haunting stare at Seurat's pointillist painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte, mirrors his own fragmented identity. His near catatonia at the pool and his explosive meltdown that ends with the destruction of his father's Ferrari serve as pivotal cathartic beats. These scenes are not simply comedic, they depict a teenager reaching his emotional breaking point and finally confronting years of repressed fear and resentment.
I am not going to sit on my ass. As the events that affect me unfold to determine the course of my life, I'm going to take a stand.
Cameron's arc is one of the most significant in John Hughes's filmography. Over the course of a single day, he moves from paralyzing indecision to a place of self-assertion, choosing to face his father's wrath instead of continuing to live in fear. This makes his story the true coming-of-age narrative within the film. A widely discussed fan theory even suggests that Ferris is not real, but rather a projection of Cameron's subconscious, an alter ego who allows him to live out his fantasies and find the courage to change. Whether literal or metaphorical, Ferris's day off serves as Cameron's therapeutic intervention, and by the film's end, he has gained something far more valuable than a day of fun, a sense of agency and the courage to reclaim his own life. Cliff Booth. Brad Pitt's Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the embodiment of effortless cool, a stuntman-turned-driver whose quiet competence and lethal calm make him one of Quentin Tarantino's most fascinating creations. Cliff is a World War II veteran, Rick Dalton's stunt double and closest friend, and the man who quietly keeps Rick functioning as his Hollywood career fades. Their relationship is described as being more than a brother and a little less than a wife, a bond that underscores Cliff's role as protector, confidant, and occasional enabler.
Whoa, whoa. Hey,
I'm sorry about that.
here, put these on. Don't cry in front of the Mexicans.
Cliff is the quintessential Western hero dropped into the waning days of 1960s Hollywood, charming, laconic, and capable of sudden bursts of violence when necessary. Pitt's preparation for the role was unusually intense. To portray a stuntman convincingly, he trained extensively with fight coordinators in martial arts, particularly Filipino stick fighting and close-quarters combat, so he could execute the film's signature moments, including the infamous Bruce Lee fight, without a stunt double. Pitt and Tarantino also bonded over a shared admiration for the 1971 film Billy Jack, using it as a tonal reference point for Cliff's stoic demeanor. Interestingly, Tom Cruise was once considered for the role, but Pitt's rugged charisma ultimately made him the perfect fit, earning him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. A central tension in Cliff's character is the unresolved question of whether he killed his wife. The film shows a brief flashback, Cliff sitting on a boat with a harpoon gun in his lap as his wife berates him. The scene cuts away before revealing what happened, leaving audiences to debate whether he is a wrongly maligned man or a murderer who got away with it. This ambiguity keeps Cliff fascinating. He is both likable and potentially dangerous. Tarantino's later novelization removes the ambiguity entirely, stating bluntly that Cliff did kill his wife and covered it up, reframing him as a darker, more morally complicated figure than the film suggests. Cliff's defining moment comes during the film's climax, when he takes on the Manson family attackers with casual, almost playful brutality, saving Rick and his guest from certain death. This sequence cements him as a hyper-competent protector, but it also highlights the film's commentary on how charisma and charm can make audiences cheer for deeply flawed men. The character's story is not finished. Pitt is set to reprise the role in The Adventures of Cliff Booth, a spin-off written by Tarantino and directed by David Fincher, which will explore Cliff's life as a Hollywood fixer in the late 1970s. Chris Shiherlis, Val Kilmer's portrayal of Chris Shiherlis in Michael Mann's Heat, transforms what could have been a stock crew member role into one of the film's most layered and memorable characters. Chris is the youngest and most impulsive member of Neil McCauley's elite crew of professional thieves. His life is marked by volatility. He is fiercely loyal to Neil, but plagued by personal flaws, including a severe gambling addiction and a volatile marriage to Charlene. Charlene describes him as a child growing older, a line that perfectly encapsulates his arrested development and inability to reconcile his personal life.
Point talking to you because all you are is a child growing older.
What's this supposed to mean?
It means we're not making forward progress like
With the discipline required for his criminal profession, Kilmer's dedication to realism gave Chris a depth that resonates on screen. He, along with De Niro and Sizemore, trained extensively with former British SAS operatives to perfect their tactical movements. Kilmer's flawless reload during the downtown shootout became so iconic that real-life US Marines use it as a training example for how to reload under fire. This commitment to authenticity is what makes Chris's scenes so convincing. His intensity feels earned rather than performed. Interestingly, Keanu Reeves was originally offered the role, but turned it down to perform in a stage production of Hamlet, leaving the door open for Kilmer to deliver one of the standout performances of his career. Chris's arc is one of survival and forced growth. He is the only member of Neil's crew to make it out alive after the disastrous bank heist and ensuing shootout. His final scene is wordless yet devastating. Charlene, standing on a balcony under police surveillance, subtly signals him to stay away by making a flat, palm-down gesture. The same gesture used in Blackjack to signal stand. It is a moment loaded with meaning, acknowledging both his gambling problem and the impossibility of reuniting with his family. Chris heeds the signal and escapes, finally choosing survival over emotional attachment, embodying Neil's famous code. Don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. Michael Mann expanded Chris's story in his 2022 novel Heat 2, which serves as both prequel and sequel. The novel reveals that Chris fully internalizes Neil's discipline, eventually transforming into a more calculated and ruthless criminal mastermind than his mentor. This continuation completes his character arc, showing the evolution from reckless protege to the heir of Neil's legacy. Chris Shiherlis is the embodiment of Mann's central theme. In the world of Heat, survival belongs to those who can detach. Ellis Boyd Redding, aka Red. Ellis Boyd, Red Redding, is the narrator and moral compass of The Shawshank Redemption, serving as the audience's guide through decades of life inside Shawshank Prison. When we first meet Red, he is a man who has long accepted his fate as a lifer. He knows the rhythms of prison better than anyone and has even carved out a position of influence as the man who can get things, smuggling contraband for inmates in exchange for cigarettes or favors. Red's perspective is initially cynical. He warns Andy Dufresne that hope is a dangerous thing, a sentiment born from years of institutionalization that have stripped him of any belief in a future beyond Shawshank's walls. Red's friendship with Andy becomes the central emotional thread of the film. Andy's quiet determination to maintain his dignity and inner freedom begins to erode Red's carefully built shell of resignation. Over the course of 2 decades, Red transforms from a man who merely exists within the prison system to one who dares to imagine a life beyond it. His parole hearings serve as markers of his evolution, from rehearsed contrition to blunt honesty, culminating in his release and eventual journey to reunite with Andy and Zihuatanejo. Red's final words, spoken in voiceover: "I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope," are among the most powerful closing lines in cinema, encapsulating the film's core message about redemption and the endurance of hope.
I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams.
It was Morgan Freeman's performance that elevated Red into one of the most iconic supporting characters ever put on screen. Interestingly, in Stephen King's novella Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, Red is described as a white Irishman with red hair. And actors like Clint Eastwood and Paul Newman were considered for the part. Director Frank Darabont, however, had Freeman in mind from the beginning, captivated by his calm authority and resonant voice. The film even winks at the casting change when Andy asks Red about his nickname, to which he replies with a sly grin, "Maybe it's because I'm Irish."
Why do they call you that?
Maybe it's because I'm Irish.
Freeman's narration became a defining element of the film's tone. The initial track was recorded in a single 40-minute session, so it could be played on set during shooting, but a technical hiss forced him to re-record the entire narration over a painstaking 3-week period. His voice lent the film a meditative, almost spiritual quality that elevated it from prison, drama, to cinematic parable. Through Red, the audience experiences the journey from institutionalized despair to liberation, making his transformation the true redemption of the title. Spock, Mr. Spock, is one of science fiction's most enduring icons, the embodiment of logic, intellect, and the struggle to reconcile 2 worlds. Born to a Vulcan father and a human mother, Spock spends much of his life caught between the strict emotional discipline of Vulcan culture and the raw emotional currents of his human half. This dual heritage defines his character arc. He is forever striving to suppress emotion, yet his compassion and loyalty often break through the surface. As the Enterprise's first officer and science officer, Spock provides the voice of rationality to balance Captain Kirk's bold impulsiveness and Dr. McCoy's emotional outbursts, creating the series' legendary triad of head, heart, and will. Spock's stoicism is not the absence of feeling but the presence of control. Some of his most memorable moments reveal cracks in that facade. His sacrifice in The Wrath of Khan, where he calmly tells Kirk, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few," before giving his life to save the ship.
Were I to invoke logic, logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Or his rare but impactful displays of anger during moments of extreme stress. These glimpses of his human side deepen his character, making him relatable to audiences who see in him the struggle to balance reason and feeling. Leonard Nimoy's contribution to Spock was transformative. Initially hesitant to take the role, fearing it might harm his serious acting career, Nimoy ultimately became synonymous with the character. He was instrumental in shaping Vulcan culture. The famous split-fingered Vulcan salute was his invention, inspired by a blessing he had seen as a child in synagogue, and the nerve pinch was created at his suggestion as a more elegant alternative to a punch. NBC executives worried Spock's pointed ears and eyebrows might make him look satanic, but fan response quickly made him the most popular character on the show, sparking what became known as Spock mania. Spock's cultural influence has been profound. He became a symbol for outsiders, those who feel caught between 2 identities, and a representation of the ideal of infinite diversity in infinite combinations, a core Vulcan philosophy celebrating coexistence. The Mirror Mirror episode of the original series, which introduced an alternate universe, Spock sporting a goatee, created one of the most parodied tropes in television history, the evil twin. Spock is not beloved because he is purely logical, but because he is imperfectly so, always wrestling with his humanity. Nimoy captured this tension with subtle eyebrow raises, dry humor, and moments of quiet compassion, creating a character who has endured for nearly 60 years as the beating, conflicted heart of the Star Trek franchise. If you liked this breakdown of iconic sidekick characters in these movies, you're gonna love the next video on the screen, so go check it out now.